Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of Frantz Building Services. Frantz is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from $1.5 million to more than $20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast. This is your host, Jordan Tong. So today I want to, as an introductory episode here for the podcast, I want to give a little bit of a backstory about myself and the company that I own, I'm one of the owners for. And part of my reason for doing this is, number one, I love sharing the story, and it's I find from others that it can be encouraging and motivating. In part just to be able to see a lot of the pitfalls and struggles that we've been through. There's a lot of relatability with that. But also, there's a lot of consultants out there in the janitorial industry and in other industries as well that have had a little bit of success in that particular industry, but are also good sales and marketing people and end up being consultants and selling products and services, etc., but really don't have, I don't know, what I would say is extensive street cred in the industry that they're consulting in. And that has always been a challenge for me as I have tried to find consultants, is finding somebody that made sense for our company that really had the legitimacy and the experience to earn my trust to be able to work with our organization. So that being said, I want to just tell you a little bit about the company that I have been a part of for quite some time, is Frantz Building Services. So Frantz Building Services, we're a janitorial contractor. We're based out of Kentucky, kind of a South Midwest organization. So the company was started by my grandparents actually in 1985. So my grandmother was a German immigrant. My granddad was in the Army. He was a sergeant in the Army and was actually stationed in Germany. That's where he met my grandmother, and they got married and came back, and I think he was a union Boilermaker, and my grandmother worked part-time at a factory, and they were just blue-collar, very low middle-class folks. And one day my granddad was sick of doing what he was doing and really wanted to start a business, but had no idea what to do or how to do it. And so they decided upon a cleaning company, and they started going out and trying to solicit jobs. So I think he quit the job that he was doing and started selling during the day, and then they would clean at night. So typically my granddad did sort of the selling and some of the stuff during the day, and my grandmother would clean or work with cleaners in the evening. And they started off just like so many people in the industry with small jobs, little one day a week, $50 a week sort of accounts, and it slowly started to grow from there. And it was, like pushing a snowball down the hill. Like for quite some time, it's super small. It takes a lot of effort to keep it going. And this was true for their business, that it was small. It was steadily growing. It was steadily getting a little bit bigger, a little bit more employees, a little bit more complexity, a little bit bigger customers. And that trajectory really lasted for well over a decade. So I think we hit our $1 million mark somewhere in the late 90s. So again, we went from 0 to $1 million. It took us like 12, 13 years, right? Which is really slow. And I was a little kid at this time. And I was born in 83, so I was 2 years old when the company was founded. So in 97, maybe 98, my parents took over the business from my grandparents in terms of ownership, and started running the business. My mom was doing our admin and financial work in the office, and my dad was selling and also the head of operations. So our supervisors and floor crew reported to my dad. My dad dealt with the customers, and then my mom handled all the payroll and the billing and accounts receivables and, all the various pieces of the organization from a finance and admin standpoint. So my parents grew the company, under their watch, let's say from 97 to 2007, which is the year that I joined. They added close to another $1 million to the organization there. So you see our growth was starting to accelerate a little bit. And it's helpful just to put this in context to keep in mind we were situated in a small town. So the company was started, and really all of our growth up to this point we're in Davis County, Kentucky. And in Kentucky, we refer to counties typically. The city is Owensboro, Kentucky. In our county, there's during that time, like in the early 2000s, there's less than 100,000 people. So the amount of business that we had picked up without going outside of our market was good. Like we had some success in our market. We were still a really small company. We were not making a whole lot of money. But we had aspirations. So this is where I come into the picture a little bit. Like some of you all that have grown up in the industry, I did clean and was involved in some jobs during my younger years and as a job during high school. I hated that job when I was in high school. So I ended up going off to college, went to Tennessee Tech University and got a degree in civil engineering. Now, after I got my degree in 2005, I moved to Nashville and worked in construction and development there for a couple years. And my dad in 2007 invited me to move back home to the small town and join the family business. And I really had a desire for that. I mean, I'd already been talking to my dad about my want to be entrepreneurial and, not to be stuck in an office working for somebody else the rest of my life. I'm just not wired to do that. I can if I need to, but that's not what I want to be doing and where I want to be doing it. So I agreed to come back home. And my wife and I packed up our stuff from Nashville and moved back home in 2007, and I joined the company. And I had very little business experience. My background was kind of technical, more than, business or sales or that sort of thing. And I honestly didn't really know anything about the industry, despite, having grown up around it. And so I can remember vividly today, even though this was, 17 years ago, being at the office the first couple of days and just sitting there thinking this is pretty cool, but also not having a clue in the world what I was supposed to be doing. And my dad honestly didn't really know either. I mean, he knew we'd figure it out along the way. So that me joining in 2007, at that time too, I was super ambitious, and really thought, man, we can build this awesome company. I was a bit naive too, but pretty ambitious. And I was super, I guess what I would call success-oriented. And I think that was a flaw in the way that I was. I was a bit self-centered in that. Like I wanted to be successful. And while that did drive me in some ways, I think I lost perspective about what's important. And really didn't know how to create a culture and lead people in such a way, because a lot of times it was about myself. And just to be quite honest, I didn't have a clue early on what it meant to run and grow and lead an organization. I was 25 years old, for crying out loud. So, but when I came, the main objective from, as my dad and I talked together is that my job was to try to grow the business. And that's really what I tried to do. So I started marketing and making cold calls. I mean, I was creating, looking back now, I cringe at them, really crappy marketing pieces that I developed in Word, and I'd swipe images off of Google Images. But I started mailing out these packets, and I got directories of manufacturing companies, and I would find contact information at those locations. And I was just hungry, and I would send out info about our organization, and then make follow-up phone calls, and started getting some sales appointments, and we started landing some jobs. And I was doing this in a couple of markets that were about 45 minutes away from our town. So there were some other cities that were close by that had actually a little bit bigger population center than where we were at, probably about twice the size. And that's where I was marketing, and we started to have some success. I mean, I remember picking up a small little manufacturing office that was about $900 a month. Picked up a pretty good size industrial account that was about $10,000 a month. And I remember when we were awarded the contract, the purchasing manager asked me, said, "Hey, are you sure you can do it for this?" Which meant I underbid the job, and I did. And we didn't make much money on it. It was maybe a 15% margin account for quite some time. But we picked up a small like ITT Tech facility, and we slowly started adding some accounts. And during that time, it was stressful because we didn't have management in those areas, and so I was selling those accounts, trying to deal with the customers, and then having to hire cleaners and staff the accounts, and we'd get call-ins. You guys, you know how that goes. People not showing up, people doing things on the job that the customer then gets mad at. And I can vividly remember this one account, the big industrial account that I underbid. It had two third shift workers, which was an almost impossible job to staff, or at least I had great difficulty doing it at the time. And I would remember often I would have somebody call in sick, and it's nearly impossible to replace a third shift worker that calls in an hour before their shift. And so I knew when that would happen, the very next morning at 6 a.m. when our customer contact got there, he would be calling me wanting to know where the third shift person was. And so the stress of trying to find somebody at night, and then if they called and couldn't make it, and me trying to come up with backup plans, and then knowing I was going to get barked at the next morning at 6 a.m. A lot of sleep was lost during those days. But we just slowly started to grow. In that particular market, we grew. We were growing about at a clip during those early years of, we went from 1985 to 2007, 0 to like 1.7 million. And then after 2007, when we started to get intentional about growing, we started growing at a rate of anywhere between $700K and $1 million a year. We had some years that were a little bit better than that. We had some years that were maybe a little bit worse than that. But we started growing at a pretty good rate, and it's just started picking up. And so once we established ourselves in one metropolitan area, we would go and find another one that we felt was ideal for us, but also within an hour or two driving distance. And we would do the same thing in those markets. And so we started to branch out into a handful of smaller markets that surrounded where we were at. We even did a little bit of time down in Nashville, and we actually still have a presence in Nashville. And that was kind of as far south as we reached during that time. So, you think about those are some of the sales operation struggles, sort of the growth pains of trying to figure some of this stuff out. Along the way, the thing that probably helped the most, and you read books like Good to Great that talk about the importance of getting the right people on your team and the right people in the right seats. Traction, the EOS model, talks about the same sort of concept. Is we started upgrading talent in our organization, not necessarily aggressively, but when we needed to fill a position, when we had somebody leave or quit or maybe lost their job for whatever reason, we started trying to put really good people, almost to the point where we were over-hiring a little bit to fill some of the roles. And the roles I'm talking about are things like in sales, we hired our first HR person. Our branch managers, area managers, those sorts of positions. And as we started building out that team and then upgrading as attrition happened for various reasons, the company began to take a life of its own. So, one of my desires early on was to help build something that didn't need me, and where I became unnecessary to the organization. And that required people on the team that were better than me and smarter than me in various areas of running the business. And that's what we did. I remember the one person that stands out to me in that regard his name is Brian, and he's our company president now, and actually one of the owners at our organization as of recently. And he had quit a really good job that he was at, had been at for a long time, was just burnt out and looking to do something different. And I remember pitching him the offer to come here for less than what he was making, and just tried to sell him on the opportunity that was there. And when he took that job, I think part of it was desperation on his end. He just needed something. But when he took that job, it was a game changer for us. He started to lead and run the operation portion of our business, which was never an area that I was strong in. And he slowly just started taking that and running with it, and our profitability began to improve. I struggled with leading a team of managers and holding people accountable, and that was just an area that he was super strong in. And so our profit started to go. So I was working on the sales end and really pushing to see that happen. Brian was working on the operations, and so we were growing still at that clip of $700K to $1 million a year. But also our operations were improving and our profitability was improving. Okay, so let's fast forward to 2017, somewhere in there. I just started Elite Business Coaching and was helping other janitorial contractors. My role at Frantz got more and more minimal. I was just involved maybe at a pretty high level, like just strategic things, vision things, that sort of stuff, but not involved in day-to-day operations. And I had one of the clients that I was helping with Elite BSC, a janitorial company about 3 hours away, asked if we would be interested in buying his organization. So at the time, I want to say we were probably doing about $10 million in revenue, something like that, 9 or 10 million. And it was a deal that worked out for both of us. We spent probably 3-4 months on the deal. His company was about $3.5 million in revenue, and we were able to, go through that whole acquisition process. It was actually a really good process on this particular deal. We spent a lot of time building some trust with each other. There were certainly hiccups and bumps in the road, but we were able to make that work. So that propelled us a little bit in terms of revenue and also geography. So we were now in a market that was a bit of a leapfrog north for us, and because we bought into something, we had an established operation that we could then build from. So that put us up to in the $12-13 million range at that point in 2017. And from there, we just, things have just, this is where the snowball started to pick up. So the profit margins, we went from being in the 2, 3, 4, 5% margin. A 6% year would have been a really good year. And we dreamed about and talked about having 10% plus days ahead of us. So if I'm fast forwarding to today, in 2024, we'll do just over $20 million this year. In the last couple of years, the last 3 years, we've hit 10+% in margin. And this has been a fun ride. Like I love what we do. I love our team. I love being able to see the business grow and thrive and see people get opportunities to do things that maybe they wouldn't be able to and be loved on in a way here that maybe they wouldn't be at other places. And what's been interesting about this journey is that, early on I mentioned that I was very ambitious and success-oriented. And there's still a part of me that I have a high level of ambition and want to succeed in a variety of things. But how I measure success here at the organization has definitely changed. And while profit and growth is certainly one indicator of our success, there are a lot of other pieces of success that we've seen unfold here. Just building a team and the culture and the impact you can have on people, the jobs that you're able to create, the way you're able to shape and change the industry and the customers you serve. There's a whole layer of things that make what we do really worthwhile. And that's been a joy. And so part of my joy in running Elite BSC is that I get to help and work with other contractors, helping them with their businesses. Most of that's through our mastermind group that I run. But my goal is to just help share all the things that we have learned. Like I painted with a broad brush today, but there was tons of mistakes, and I did so many things wrong, and I was so stupid so many times. And so there's a lot of mistakes that we have learned from that I think by helping others understand maybe what those mistakes are, we're able to help you maybe avoid some of the mistakes and maybe speed up the growth. I have some friends in the industry who have built companies much faster than ours was built, and I think it's because they had some tools that we didn't have early on, and some information and knowledge, and so that's my goal is to help you in your organization, to help you be able to grow, to leverage some of the success that we've had and be able to share that with you, and hopefully you find that it's helpful and motivating and encouraging, and you can take your commercial cleaning company to the next level and get it to where you want to go. So this is the first of what I hope to be many episodes for this podcast. I'm just going to give general tips and talk about things that I think will be helpful to people trying to grow a commercial cleaning business. I'll use my own company as an example often and try to share with you things that you think might be helpful. And you can always go to our website, elitebsc.com, to find more resources, more information, and get plugged into our group too, which gives you more of a deep dive than what I could possibly give on this podcast. So I hope this was helpful and informative and maybe even a bit encouraging. And I hope you'll tune in next time on the next episode. And until then, all the best, and hope you find success in what you're doing. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.